Today on Without a Piano lesson number 6, you'll be learning about major scales. So you've learned about major chords that sound like this, as an example. Now, a major scale is actually a group of notes played in a particular order. So you have two ways of referencing the keyboard without a piano present. One is to draw it using a piece of paper, like this. See what I did here? A little example. You can keep drawing. You do 2, skip a line. This is lined paper, made it a lot easier. Draw a group of 3. Doesn't have to be pretty, obviously. All right, so this is what a piano keyboard looks like, as you can see. And your other way of referencing the keyboard without a piano is to use the printout. All right, so here's the printout. You can click on the link on the homepage on YouTube, or you will get one delivered to your unit. Okay, you can ask your PC, or I will deliver it myself. So this is actually a printout of this keyboard. It's a picture of this keyboard, and it's the exact same size as the keyboard. Maybe just a tiny bit bigger. But I measured it, and it's supposed to be exactly the same. And then on top, you've got 88 keys going across, so you can reference what a real full-size piano keyboard looks like right here. Okay? So today we're going to be talking about major scales using the white keys, starting with this note, C. You'll remember that from the musical alphabet. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay? So from C to C is going to be our reference scale. The C major scale is simply the musical alphabet, just staying on the white keys to keep it simple. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's a major scale. It has a certain sound. And I'm going to run through a couple different, actually about 4 or 5 different major scales, just so you can hear what they sound like starting on different notes. I'm not going to explain them yet. I'm just going to do this so you can hear it. You'll see me play some black keys, but don't forget, this group of white keys from C to C, this is your reference. We're always going to come back to that scale to talk about the relationship between the notes, okay? So, C major, it's named for C and it's called major because of the order of the notes, okay? Here is G major. Remember, C, D, E, F, G. Find the note that looks like that. And you can start there anywhere on the keyboard. This is what it sounds like starting on G. Next one, let's try D major. All right, so find the D. You can find it by counting up from A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, okay? D major sounds like this. All right, so it's a special this one's a special combination of white keys and black keys. All major scales are except for C major, which is all white keys, which is the one we're using just to keep it simple. That was C major again. So let's talk about C major. Let's talk about all 3 of those scales I just played. What do they have in common? Well, they're a certain combination of whole steps and half steps, which we talked about in the last lesson. If you want to go back and review, feel free. I will do a quick review right now. Half step is as close together as 2 notes can be on the piano keyboard. That's an example of a half step right there, because there's no key in between them. Here's another example of a half step. Beautiful, right? Just kidding. It's not that pretty of a sound. Half step, though, you can tell it's a half step because there's no key in between. These 2 are as close together as they can be. So they look a little different than this, but they're actually the same relationship. They're the same interval. Interval is a relationship between 2 notes. half step, okay? A whole step is a half step plus a half step. Also not the prettiest sound when you play the two notes back or at the same time. But that is a whole step. All right, so let's talk about the order of whole steps and half steps in a major scale. Okay, so you start with the first note and then you go to the second note. Okay, C to C. C major is always going to be our reference because this is our simple white key scale. C to D. What kind of interval is that? Is it a half step or a whole step? It's a whole step, okay? Now, C to D. Next note. D to E. Is this as close together as two notes can be? Or is there a note in between them? Well, there's a note in between them, so it's a whole step, just like C to D. So you've got C plus a whole step plus a whole step. Now, cross under, if you're playing it. You cross under with your thumb here. What is that? What's the relationship between these two notes? They are as close together as they can be. There is nothing in between them, so they are a half step. All right, so what do we have so far? C, whole step, half step. Okay, next one. F to G, whole step, right? Because there's a key in between. Whole step. So start with C, whole, half, whole. Next one. Remember, this is G, this is A. This is the end of the musical alphabet. This is the beginning. Is there a key between these two? Yes, there is. It's right here. So that's how you know this is a whole step. All right, so in order so far we have, starting with C, this by itself is not a whole step or a half step, it's just a note. But we're going to the next note. That's a relationship between two notes, so that's gonna be some kind of interval. Whole step, half step, whole step, almost there. What's this? Well, it has a key in between, so it's a whole step. Now, what do we have so far? C, whole step, half step, whole step, and finally, as close together as they can be, nothing in between, half step, all right? So what that means is that a major scale, feel free to write this down if you're taking notes. A major scale is, it starts with your note and then the first interval is a whole step, W. The next interval, whole step. The next interval, H for half step. The next interval, whole step. The next interval, whole step. Next interval, whole step. Finally, you end with a half step. All right, so whole, half, whole, half. That is a major scale. I'm going to apply it to the other scales that we talked about. G major, starting with G, whole, half, whole. Look at that one, that's a whole step. It looks strange, but it's only got one key in between, so you know it's a whole step. Half step. All right, so together. All right, and then we also talked about D major. D, whole step, half step, whole step, and then your last one, which is a half step. Okay, I just applied these same note relationships, starting on any key. You could start right here, whole, half, whole, get a similar sound. Okay, I could start any key on the entire keyboard. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much. And next time we will talk about minor scales. So, see you next time.